Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the brother of King Charles, has been released from police custody after he was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
The former prince was seen leaving a police station late last night in a car. He spent his 66th birthday being questioned by police over his links to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. His arrest is significant as he's the first senior British royal to be arrested in modern times.
It's also the latest in a scandal that has ensnared top names in politics and business. Ollie Barrett has been tracking developments for CNA. He files us this report from outside Buckingham Palace.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor released after nearly 12 hours in police custody. He had initially been arrested by Thames Valley Police on suspicion of misconduct in public office. That is believed to relate to allegations that he shared confidential information, documents with convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein back in the early 2010s when Andrew was a UK trade envoy. That is a crime that carries a possible life sentence. Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing, and he has not yet been charged with a crime. On his release, Thames Valley Police saying that he was released under investigation. What that means is he hasn't yet been charged with a crime, but police have also not yet decided to drop the case in any way. They've also been carrying out searches at the Royal Lodge property where he used to live, close to Windsor Castle, before he was thrown out of there by King Charles because of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein and the controversy surrounding that. Police were also searching a property at Sandringham where Andrew now lives on King Charles's private estate. King Charles insisting in his statement issued by Buckingham Palace here in London that he had deep concern about the arrest and the allegations, that the family, the royal family, would be cooperating with and supporting police investigations, and also insisting that royal duties and service would continue. And we saw that on Thursday in central London with King Charles and Queen Camilla both carrying out planned engagements. But this is an episode that is rocking the institution of the royal family here in the UK. They will know that they will have very choppy days ahead indeed. That investigation by Thames Valley Police into Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor very much continues. Ollie Barrett for CNA at Buckingham Palace in London.
And to share on the possible repercussions on the scandal, we are joined by Aya Gruber. She's a professor of law at the USC Gould School of Law. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. Firstly, just how unprecedented is this arrest? And from what we know so far, how serious does this alleged leak or misconduct appear to you?
So it's a very interesting situation because this is a very serious matter for the royal family. It is an unprecedented arrest of a former member of the royal family. The charge is a common law charge, which basically means this idea of public corruption or misconduct in office has been a charge that's been around a long time. But it's cropped up through the law. And it is a serious charge, but I think the reason that Andrew is being focused on for public corruption is because of his connection to the allegations of underage sex that have come out through the Epstein scandal.
So, Professor, the question I have for you, and this is based on observations that have been made prior to the former prince's arrest. I mean, a lot of people, the Democrats in particular, were saying, you know, all the repercussions have been taking place overseas. You know, no one in the United States is being, if you like, prosecuted or investigated with the latest release of the Epstein files. Do you think this is going to make a difference now, given who he is, you know, within the royal family? And he's right up there, top tier in the monarchy.
Yeah, I think that I would say it's very unlikely to see any charges coming out of the United States with regards to sex trafficking or some of the allegations of underage sex. I think for Andrew, the evidence and photographic evidence of his connections with Virginia Giuffre, along with her allegations, are quite serious. The issue there is we have a witness who unfortunately is deceased now through suicide. And that case would have been more ripe for prosecution several years ago. And unless there is something else that's coming from these Epstein files that can shed some other light on the sexual allegations, I think we're unlikely to see those types of charges. What's happened is so many millions of pages of emails have come out that a lot of things are coming out of the woodwork, like public corruption and other kinds of, backdoor dealing. And those can give rise to different charges, corruption or financial charges. But what we're not seeing is much more on the sex trafficking end.
So what about the possibility of the former prince, being questioned by the U.S. Department of Justice? Is that even within the realm of reality, possibility?
I don't think it's, I don't think it's likely. It's possible that something else is coming out in the emails that implicates U.S. law. This is, again, a public corruption case under UK common law. And I am not privy to, maybe the Department of Justice is privy to some more information in the sex trafficking context that would implicate Andrew. But another thing that you have to realize is this particular Department of Justice, Trump's Department of Justice, is really ready to make the Epstein files a thing of the past. So I don't think they're going to take the initiative to start new investigations.
And given how unprecedented this is, what kind of aftershocks could this arrest trigger in the UK? Could this perhaps deepen what's already a reputational crisis for the monarchy? And also separately, would it add political pressure for Prime Minister Keir Starmer?
I think that this is a result of the dissatisfaction with both prosecutors and maybe the reaction of the royal palace to these very serious allegations of underage sexual misconduct with underage people. And I think it's because of these revelations of the closeness of the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and the former Prince Andrew, especially when it relates to Virginia Giuffre. And there's that photograph there, that there's been enormous pressure on the government to do something, right? Like to take this seriously. And so, I guess on the other side, you could say, well, they were going to come up with something to get at Prince Andrew to show people that they take this kind of sexual misconduct seriously. But then on the other hand, the charge isn't one that's related to sexual misconduct. So, on Andrew's side, they're going to say, like, this was a fishing expedition to get me on something because there wasn't enough evidence to show that I had committed sexual misconduct.
Prof. Gruber, I just want to go back to the point you were making of how you think, the DOJ is going to be that final line in the sand, for want of a better description, in terms of, opening cases towards potential, perpetrators. I'm wondering, in the U.S. itself, politically, will the Democrats be able to do anything? Will relatives and victims themselves be able to do anything to prod the DOJ to do more? Is this case, in particular, the arrest of the former prince, one thing that may, provide, if you like, that little persuasion or that little impetus, for Democrats and others to push the DOJ to do more?
I think this remains to be seen. I mean, the big fight for the Democrats right now is that so much of it is redacted. And it's redacted at the discretion of Pam Bondi and the current Justice Department, that it's hard to know what's in there. And it's not a full transparency, which is what both the victims and the people, like the public, is calling for full transparency. What did people know? When did they know it? That's what they want. And so I think that's the big fight right now. Without knowing, who else participated or facilitated the scheme of, sexual misconduct on the part of Jeffrey Epstein, it's hard to say whether there's fodder for more sex trafficking or sex-related crimes. But there is certainly a call for there to be transparency, because people want to know who was part of this inner circle, who was condoning or at least tolerating his sexual misconduct.
Okay, and Professor, before we let you go, what will be the next decisive moment in the wider Epstein fallout that tells us whether we are heading towards deeper accountability or this begins to taper off?
I think it really depends on the United States front, on the actions of Democrats in Congress to put pressure on getting unredacted files released to the public. It's just hard to know. There's so many millions of documents, and every day there's more documents sort of on more scandals. The interesting thing is a lot of those scandals just show sort of this backdoor dealing and how Epstein was this power broker and everybody was willing to hold their nose about his charges that he had and take his money. So I think that that's part of it, that it's sort of peeling back the onion on these backdoor dealings with billionaires. Whether or not we're going to see sexual abuse charges, that's a whole other question. And right now, I haven't seen anything that's shedding light on that. I think in terms of the former Prince Andrew, the next step would be, what is the evidence of this corruption? There's some evidence that there might be a leaked report, that he leaked some report that might have helped Epstein because he was his buddy, which would be a violation of confidentiality. So I think that's the next step on that end, is to see what the evidence is of the public corruption.
Okay, Prof, I'm just going to break our promise very quickly here. I'm wondering, everywhere in the world, public pressure has resulted in investigations being opened, people stepping down. Why hasn't happened in the United States? The DOJ, is it immune to public pressure and public opinion?
I don't think the DOJ is immune to public pressure and public opinion. The difficult part about it, if I'm just to put on a sort of more political analyst hat, is that people, and especially people in Trump's base, were very, very interested to see the full Epstein files and to understand what kind of ties he had, such that people had something to lose with his revelations in court or anything else. And so I think what people were really waiting for when Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files, including a lot of his own supporters, was that there would be transparency, namely on his relationship with Epstein. Now, once the files have been released, he's saying, like, look, I didn't have any relationship with him. But I think people aren't satisfied unless they get the whole picture. I think what the DOJ and the Trump administration is hoping is that, there's a lot of documents to go through. This is going to fade from public view. And I think, frankly, to some extent it has. The pressure on it is just not what it was a few months ago.
Right. Okay, Professor, we will let you go now. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning. Aya Gruber is Professor of Law at the USC Gould School of Law.